We are back, boys. Another Seeing the World integrally video. This one is going to be very exciting because we're going to be analyzing through a Gebserian sort of integral lens one of my favorite films of all time. I believe it's pronounced this way, Synecdoche, New York. I know it's spelled Synecdoche. I know that. I believe the title was a play on Synecdoche and Schenectady, New York, which is the place where the story takes place, and it is one of my favorite films of all time. It stars Philip Seymour Hoffman, the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman, who I miss very, very, very much. I think he was probably the best actor of his generation. I think he is a brilliant, brilliant actor. He obviously had some demons. It's very sad. I don't know him personally, obviously, so I can't speak to that. But as an actor, wow. Oh, it's like watching Kant do philosophy. It's just like, yes, I am thankful I can watch your greatness on this earth. What a beautiful actor. Man. Oh, so good. But it's not just that. It's got Catherine Keener. It's got Emily Watson. It's got a couple other guys here and there. And it's a film that it's kind of hard to describe in terms of plot synopsis. But it follows Caden, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, sort of middle-aged man who's married to Catherine, I think, or Kathleen Keener, has a daughter with her, and again, it's a little difficult to describe in terms of plot synopsis, but more or less, we see his life just kind of unfold, both in the sense of time just kind of moving and allowing life to happen, but also unfolding in the sense of things are going badly, and he kind of loses everything. And in addition to this, he wins a grant at some point. By the way, things get a little surreal in this movie. I think there's a broader discussion to be had about what events in this film actually took place and what events are just, I don't know, made up, or they're just figments of Phil's imagination. I'm not sure. But he wins this eminently convenient grant that is essentially just a blank check, and he creates a play. He's a playwright, and the play he writes, and we'll touch on this, trust me, and this will be a big point, is more or less just a reenactment of his life, which is depressing. By the way, as someone with depression, this is a depressed man. I can always tell. When I read Schopenhauer, I said, aha, there it is. There's that darkness I knew familiar. But he's a very depressed man. He's just nihilistic, cynical. And we just sort of follow his life. I feel like I'm being repetitive, but it can be difficult to describe in that sense. Things are very surreal. Time is a little weird, which is a point we're going to get into. But it really is one of my favorite films of all time. It is depressing, though. I'm going to give you a heads up. I always said, this and the film Come and See are the two most depressing films I've ever seen. One is this sort of just brutal, in-your-face showing of just how unbelievably evil and just ruthless and savage human beings can be in times of war. It's just unreal. Come and See is an amazing film. And then you have this, which doesn't have any, no guns go off. There's no violence or anything like that, but it's just as affecting because it makes you realize, hey, your life sucks, it's meaningless, and after it, it's even worse. Now, I disagree with that nonsense, which we're going to get into, but that's sort of a general overview of the movie. So we're going to get into a little bit of spoilers here. This is a film where if I spoiled it, I don't think you're going to lose that much because there's so much, the film's so rich in terms of symbolism and interpretation and philosophical analysis, all that stuff. So my main thesis of the film is that Charlie Kauffman is more or less a rationalist who is killing himself due to the particularly corrosive form of rationalism that he has adopted. Now, Charlie Kauffman is a very bright guy. He's one of my absolute favorite filmmakers of all time. This is going to sound weird. I actually would like to see him make the new Blood Meridian movie, which is my favorite novel of all time. I adore that novel. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but I do love it. And I think Charlie, the pros of this would be you have just a brilliant filmmaker who knows what he's doing. He knows his shots. He knows everything about it. He can direct a film brilliantly. Someone who understands philosophy on the level of a Cormac and who can actually deal with these philosophical subjects. And someone who, in a certain sense, has something to prove because he doesn't do these kinds of films. The cons of this, obviously, would be Blood Meridian is so different from what Charlie usually does that it'd be there's a risk there. But let's get into it because this might be a longer video. He's a very bright guy, but his rationalism is killing him. Now, I think the film is an imagistic portrayal of the deficient and self-destructive effects of deficient rationalism, in which consciousness eats itself. Actually, we'll save my thoughts for the end. So let's start with one of the big points. So the film really gets going after Caden wins his grant, which, again, is very convenient. So convenient to the point where it's you get the sense that Charlie knows what he's doing. And if you know anything about Charlie, he's a brilliant filmmaker. He's a very bright guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to write. His play, as I touched on earlier, really is like a one-to-one reenactment, if you will, of his life. And as it goes on, it just gets bigger and bigger and in turn more detail, but we'll get there. So I think this is a very obvious reference to the simulacra, or simulacrum, whatever it is. So the simulacrum, I believe, comes from Jean Baudrillard, who is a French postmodernist. And I will say, as much as I like to rip on the postmodernists, and I do, by the way, I haven't heard a single refutation to my why postmodernism is wrong and stupid video that I put, it was probably like my third video on the channel. I haven't heard a single refutation. I've heard a bunch of cope. I heard a bunch of, you didn't reference a particular line or page in a book, so therefore this isn't a critique. I'm sorry. That sounds like a particular epistemological system. That sounds like a power knowledge structure that you are trying to oppress on me. We'll call it first sourcism. Why in the world would I ever accept your oppressive power knowledge structure? You see how stupid postmodernism is? So that's the epistemology side. But on the cultural criticism side, there's some pretty good stuff. Deleuze and Guattari, I think there's some good stuff. The idea of the simulacrum, which I'm about to explain, this is just self-evident. So a simulacrum, as far as I know, it's actually a pretty simple concept. Some people like to over-intellectualize it. It's when a copy of reality, and this copy does not have to be a one-to-one, just a copy of reality is treated as more real than the original reality itself. Simple, right? We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. It's when the copy of reality, again, it doesn't have to be a one-to-one, exact replica, but the copy of reality becomes more real than reality itself. So a very obvious example, I think the simulacra is self-evident because of the internet. If you watch these stupid debates, maybe the Jubilee debate, 1 versus 20, or TikTok, there's people in your life, your personal life, who you probably know who aren't actually living on Earth. They're living in a TikTok video that they haven't recorded yet. I went on a date with one of these girls. It was terrible, all right? Everything's quirky. Everything's, I'm in a Wes Anderson movie. The copy of reality, the TikTok world, has become more real than reality itself. When you see those Jubilee 1 versus 20 debates, the internet clip that is shared on the amaterial space that is the internet becomes more real than the reality itself. So people aren't actually arguing. If you were to sit in front of me, we could argue, right? We're in the world. We're directly facing each other. But if we know we're recorded, we're not really in this world because I'm in the world of ratios and getting owned and getting dominated. It sounds like a porno online. And all this stuff and getting clipped up, you're in that world, right? You're in the copy of reality. You're not in reality itself. So another example, so that's the internet. That's an obvious example. Think of it like TV shows. You've probably seen this before. Take Friends or How I Met Your Mother, where you could say something like, "Oh, you're such a Rachel Green. You're such a Rachel. You're such a Ross. You're such a Ted Mosby." Now, don't get too lost because sometimes not everyone who says that is necessarily lost in simulacra, but some of them are. Some of them are genuinely trying to be Jesse Pinkman, or they're genuinely trying to be Thomas Shelby, and you talk to them and you're like, can you come back to reality, please? Because we're playing poker, it's your hand, and you keep pulling out a cigar and saying, I'll never fold, and if you do, you're not going to like it. Like, what are you doing? You're living in a movie right now. If you want to understand this, go watch the documentary. It's an amazing documentary. It's called The Act of Killing. It touches on simulacra, whether they realize it or not, because what they do is they go to a guy named Anwar Congo, which I might name my first son. He was like the old leader of like a far-right militia group who just murdered innocent communists. When I say innocent communists, I don't mean like military rivals. I'm talking innocent, their friends and family kind of stuff. Terrible stuff. And they said, hey, just reenact your killings however way you want it, and it touches on that. Like, they get too lost in the movies. But anyways, so that is what is being referenced. And I know for a fact it's being referenced because Charlie's, Philip Seymour Hoffman, references the term simulacrum in the movie. So, I mean, as far as Charlie goes, it's a relatively unsubtle moment where he's essentially telling you, hey, that's what this is. Now, here's the thing. I only think a simulacra is possible because of rationality. So, blueprints, technical drawings. To rationally analyze or represent something, one must impose space between oneself and the object of reflection. We've covered this in my Kill Rationalism series. So to rationally analyze the soccer game, you can't be participating in the soccer game because your pre-rational instinct, they're too focused. Your direction is directed elsewhere. So as such, you are not engaging with the thing directly. You're not engaging with the object of reflection directly. You're engaging with its representation or abstract conception. Not necessarily a bad thing. I want to make that very clear. Not necessarily a bad thing, but that is what you're doing. Now, this representation, of course, is very similar to this idea of the copy of reality, but we'll get there. So we do not have the consciousness of a bridge, for example. So what we do is we create a model of the bridge in the form of a representation of it. So that is to say, we create a blueprint or a technical drawing of the bridge. Is it perfect? No. But we do this because, like I just said, we don't have the consciousness of a bridge. So these models and stepping back and imposing space and doing the rational stuff, it allows us a higher degree of understanding of how bridges operate. And in turn, we can manipulate these for beneficial ends. People can cross the bridge, and now there's economic activity and people's lives are actually being improved, right? So, not necessarily a bad thing. Now, this model of the bridge, this model or technical drawing of the bridge, is this a perfect one-to-one copy? No, but it doesn't need to be. All it needs to be is sufficient. Now, how do we determine this sufficiency? Thank you, Thomas Sowell, by establishing tolerance limits. Tolerance limits, okay? That is how you determine sufficiency. You take the example, emphasis on time, too, because in one moment you're doing this, and one moment you're doing that. So if I'm building the Empire State Building and my foundation is 5 inches off, simply put, that is way, way too off to safely build that building. If you build it, it will come down and you will have thousands of people's lives on your hands. That is not good. So in this situation, emphasis on the temporal, when we're talking about this, building the Empire State Building, our tolerance limit is very, very, I guess you would say low. We have a low tolerance for imperfection. We must get this right. There is simply no getting around it. When, emphasis on the temporal, we're doing something else, let's say we're dropping a bomb in 1945 on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, guess what? I can be a mile off of my target. It doesn't matter. It's got nothing. It's completely separate from the Empire State Building example. You have to be hyper precise. And this one, I don't have to be precise at all. I could be 2, 3, 4 miles off my target, and guess what? Everyone's going to get flattened either way. Doesn't matter. Tolerance limits. That's how we determine sufficiency for our goal. So these limits will be dependent upon not only the measurable aspects of the phenomenon under consideration, but our qualitative valuations of it too. So at the end of the day, you could say, well, why don't we just build it anyways if it's 5 inches off the Empire State Building and it can come, crumbling down, who cares? And then you, of course, would say, well, that would be bad because that would lead to the deaths of innocents of thousands. And then the guy would go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. We won't do that. There you go. So just kind of laying out the groundwork here. So let me see. This is evidence, I believe, of his, charitably, we'll say his proclivity towards rational thought. Uncharitably, it will be his rationalism. Hold on one sec. So during Caden's play, this is exactly what he's doing. He is essentially creating a simulacrum where he is voluntarily submitting himself to that state where the copy of reality has become more real than reality itself. The fatal flaw, obviously, that Caden makes is not recognizing from the outset that these models would never, ever, ever produce a perfect one-to-one copy. They can never be perfect. Why? Because rationality is built from space, and everything spatial has its limits. Not a problem necessarily if we remain cognizant of these limits and work with the grain. That's why we get all this great stuff. That's why we get bridges. That's why we get buildings like the Twin Towers that's not going to fall down, and unless there is another force that brings it down, i.e. a plane or, well, I think it's a plane, but either way. That's the point. So Caden, unfortunately, is a rationalist who has created this model that has become more real than reality itself. What's the problem with that specifically? Why is that a bad thing? Why is that a negative thing? Let's be direct. So the real great tragedy here is that as he gets closer and closer to this perfect match, which is to say, as he recounts more accurately in a more prospectively rigid way his autobiographical events, as he gets closer to the truth, he becomes further and further away from reality, away from direct engagement with reality. He is always distancing himself from reality because reality is happening. While he's setting up his little models, it's happening, but he's not focused on it. He's focused on the representation. He's focused on the model. He's not living life as it is. He's living it, which is to say, irrationally. He's analyzing it in a rationalist manner. He's not even living. And in this case, it's deadly because it seems to believe, or it seems to suggest that Caden, and by extension, if you deem Kauffman to be a rationalist, which we'll get to at the end, that life can only be understood or experienced by a reified representation. This is the way life is, by creating a model of what happened and just getting lost in that. That seems to be the way that Caden is suggesting this is what the good life is. Or at the very least, this is what he's going to do, no matter how deleterious the effects are. Now, I think it's interesting when he's touching on here. Now, I should have mentioned this earlier. I think what this film really is an ontological study, or I should say a study on the ontology of man in the postmodern world. I think it's supposed to be a sweeping statement about the general ontology of every person in the postmodern world. And we'll tie this in towards the end, don't worry, but I think that's important. Like in my notes, I said, like many rationalists, he thinks a better model yields a greater grasp of a reality. In truth, it obscures it because you are not dealing with reality. And also, notice the egocentric character of Caden. Everything is about himself. Everything is about himself. He is entirely selfish, neurotic, and self-centered. That is, he has been subsumed by what Gebser and I would call the hypertrophy of the ego, the strong subject, the ego, the I, me, me, me. That has gone way, way too far. To the point... This is how bad it gets. One, when he gets a blank check for a grant and he can write any single story he wants, any single play he wants, what does he write about? He writes about his own life. That's how narcissistic and egotistical the rationalist that Caden is. Two, he loses his family because they are done with him. Catherine Keener immediately is just like, I'm tired of your depressing, ugly ass. I'm going to go somewhere else. His daughter goes to Germany and becomes like I don't even want to get into that. That was some weird shit. And then he tries to find love later on in life, and he loses all that because he just cannot get out of his own head. He cannot express even a 0.3% of empathy for anyone else. It's only like one person later on who he kind of does, and even then, he kind of treats her like shit too, because he's constantly thinking about self. His egotism, his hypertrophy of the ego has gotten so bad that the world is literally ending around him. Some cataclysmic event has happened, and Caden doesn't even notice. He doesn't even notice until the very end of the film when he asks someone, and she goes, oh yeah, the world's ending. It's like The Road by Cormac McCarthy, and he's like, oh, I didn't notice. What are you doing, bro? Get out of your own head, please. So why is this all bad? Why is the simulacrum bad? Why is getting too lost in the copy of reality over reality bad? Why is the egocentric bad? Caden has become entirely detached from the world, and he dies a meaningless, depressed, and lonely death. His life is so terrible. His life is so terrible that the actor cast to play him in the play, because remember, he's doing essentially an autobiography, it's so bad that the actor kills himself by jumping off a roof. That's how bad it is. Your life is so miserable that even me acting and playing it on a daily basis makes me, the real life person, want to kill myself, and he did. That is how bad it is. He is miserable. He is depressed. He is selfish. He is angry, he's frustrated, he has no control. He's just not someone you want to be. This is not a life you want to live, okay? I don't want to get too into it, but as someone who knows depression well, this is not a life you want to live. Now, I want to make it clear. Clinical depression is its own separate thing. I'm not saying rationalism causes clinical depression. I think it can cause depression. I don't think it causes, like, clinical depression, if that makes sense. That seems a bit silly. But it's terrible. It's completely terrible. He's become completely detached via the simulacrum, and then that's it. He's done. Everything's meaningless. Everything's, as he gets closer and closer to his perfect copy, he gets farther and farther from reality. We human beings were born, we're spiritual creatures to live on Earth. This is why it's a problem when the internet, your neighbor who's addicted to the internet doesn't come outside. He's a complete loser. Yeah, because you're lost in the amaterial realm. We didn't evolve for that world. I'm not saying it shouldn't exist. I'm just saying you need to balance that with the world out here, okay? Because you need to come back to reality. So that's evidence of his rationalism. That's evidence of Caden's rationalism. The simulacrum, which I believe only can come about through rationality, and then, of course, the hypertrophy of the ego. So now we'll move on to time. So, of course, we're going to have to explain rational time for a second. I apologize. I'm assuming since this is a film review, not all of you have seen my Gebser series. So rational time is essentially spatialized time. It's quantified time. So it's when time becomes little time units that are partitioned, aka divided, from one another. And each time unit, is equal to the one that preceded it and the one that will proceed it, and usually they're assigned a numerical value to help order the world. So an obvious example of this is the clock. Right now it's 8:53 p.m. We'll get there. It's 8:54 in a minute. It'll be 8:55 in a minute. So a clock is obvious, right? This sort of consistent, equal, metronomic, there you go, chronology, there you go. Remember, time is spatial unit divided from each other. I repeat that point because division, as we all know on this channel, is inherent to rationality. Very important to know because time is played with here. So in this film, this is why I'm a little confused about where Charlie's at in terms of his rationalism. I can't tell if he's a rationalist or an anti-rationalist because it seems as though Kauffman has, I'll say accidentally, stumbled upon what we call the achronon, which is the time freedom, which is what we're covering in my Gebser series at the moment. And time freedom just means a freedom from an exclusive employment of rational time. First it's 8:54, then it's 8:55, then it's 8:56. Right? Everything's consistent, everything's equal, everything's divided from each other. There's a lot of other aspects of time that we move through. So there's procedural unfolding. So in that case, when you walk into a room and you turn the lights on, you immediately notice the lights and the objects in the room. Well, in order for that to happen, your sight faculties of sight, I should say, had to unfold so they could actually work. Now, in this case, it would be rapidly, but rapidity is a temporal form. It's a temporal manifestation. So there you go. And then, of course, you have time as a quality. Time as a quality is very important because every moment is charged by a quality. For example, when your mother dies and you're at your funeral crying, right, that is a very sad time. It's a very depressing time. Now, notice what we just did there. We connected or associated time with quality, with sadness. It's quality time. Now, if I said I'm having a rough time right now, you would never say, yeah, 8:56. I hate when that minute comes. I can't wait for 8:57. Then it'll stop. No, you're not referencing out here. You're referencing in here. Okay, time has a quality, psychic tempera. So you feel the moment. You felt the moment when you were walking to the principal's office after he called your name on the intercom and no one knew what it was about. You felt that fear. Time is a quality. And then there's all the other form of time forms, right? So you have rhythm, meter, sort of suddenness, all these different manifestations of time. These are all very important. The point is, time does not, by necessity, have to unfold chronologically or linearly. It's foolish in accordance with rational time, but unfolds asequentially, which is, say, without sequence, without rational causal sequence. So charitably, Kauffman is a based integral thinker. Uncharitably, Kauffman has no idea what he's touched upon, and if he realized what he touched upon, all of your rationalism and all of its negative effects would vanish like that. So, when employing rational, quantifiable time exclusively, days, months, and years blur together and disappear, right? Because if everything's equal, no moment is distinct, then no moment is memorable, and everything starts to blend together. So in the film, the clocks are constantly changing, as are calendar dates and other rational time creations. Life just marches on, no day qualitatively distinct from another, and becomes a mere waiting game until the inevitable. So as, let's say, Caden is doing his morning routine, pouring his cereal, feeding his daughter, if you notice the clocks, things are constantly changing. So if you're watching, it's only a couple minutes have gone by, but in reality, like 3 months have gone by because the clocks are changing and the calendars are constantly changing. So what Kauffman is suggesting is under this exclusive employment of time, it completely reduces everything. It reduces all quality. It reduces all meaning. Everything is equal, and everything is one, and everything becomes bland. Yeah, that's what it is. So when all time is equal, the consistency of time means every moment is equally meaningless. That's what happens. Please have a little respect for time as a quality, please. It's okay. Another problem, as Paul Valery points out, is that in creating temporal directions, past, present, and future, man ceases to live in the moment, as exemplified by Caden. The great irony, of course, being that the past and future are contained within the present. So he is always focused on the past, as evidenced by his play that he's putting on, or the future, as evidenced by him freaking out over dying. So the past becomes something he either wants to overly analyze to the point where you almost wonder why, or it's something he wants to ignore and put behind, if for no other reason than his ego could not withstand the pain of realizing he's wasted most of his life due to his rationalism. So as such, Caden fails to realize how much his past is affecting his perpetual present. And you can tell because when offered to actually, kind of the point I touched on earlier, you can tell that the past is present for Caden, which is more integral rather than rational, because remember, rational divides and partitions, and the past is something that is constantly moving away from you. And so as it moves away and away, its effect on you is correspondingly lesser. Based on the fact that Caden decided to do an autobiographical play, that signals to me that the past is not something behind him and not affecting him. That signals to me that it is something present and it is hyper-effectual and it is driving your present moment. So if Caden could realize, rather than viewing past, present, and future in temporal directions that are disconnected, isolated, and separated from each other, no, past and future are integrated into the present. You can activate the past through your metaphysical faculties or your non-spatial depths or whatever it is. But Caden, he fails. So he's always focused on the future too, as exemplified by the famous scene where he declares that he will die someday. So not only does the past suck, and not only is the past real and effectual, the future sucks too, because it's charged by despair, loneliness, and bitterness. Why? Because Caden is a rationalist. So a rationalist messes up life and death. What do? One thing that's quantifiably measurable, conscious, and known, life. pitted in a dualistic sense against death. One negates the other. You cannot have both at the same time. So, of course, the rationalists are going to privilege life over death. And when you do that, death becomes... it becomes something to be feared, something to be avoided, something to be put off under all circumstances, and something to avoid under all circumstances. Of course, this is impossible, and so it creates an intense dread and anxiety within Caden. So not only is his past destroying his present and creating and conditioning his depression, it's also being compounded by his future conceptions, his future understandings of the world. All of this can be avoided, or I was going to say ignored, but avoided by recognizing the complementarity of life and death. Death is not a perspectival succession of life. Life and death are polar complements within which we participate daily, moment to moment. You have gone through experiences in your life, like I have maybe with like depression. That is death in life, right? You are experiencing death in life. And if you haven't, just give it some time. I promise you, you will. And the ancient Egyptians knew this. You can experience death in life and life in death. Why? Because just so you can experience the yin and the yang and the yang and the yin. They're polar complements. They've always been polar complements. It becomes a problem when you employ the rationalist nonsense to it. Death is what creates the death pole of the soul, which is necessary to the soul, which is just as necessary to the soul as the yin and to the yang. There is no spiritual improvement without the death pole of the soul, and without spiritual improvement, there's no reason for us spiritual creatures to be existing at all. Now, I agree that sometimes people take this way too far and legitimately evil things happen, and I think we should avoid that as much as possible. But we need to drop this idea that we can permanently stuff out death, evil, darkness. Not going to happen, is what it is. And also, by the way, death is not a cold finality that transports you into just a realm of nothingness. Okay, it does transport you, but not to nothingness. It transports you to a protective spiritual enclosure that is infinitely preferable to the world we live with down here. So you can say it's irrational. Guess what? Our irrational ancestors understood this better than you rationalist know-it-alls. So now we'll go into time as a quality. So Caden's rationalist understanding of time leads to his painfully Okay, hold on. I got to preface this for a second. So I rewatched this like a night or two ago. I didn't rewatch the whole thing because I'm a busy man. I could have swore, I think I made this up, I could have swore he had either a monologue or a line about how every moment in your life is essentially a string of random and borderline disconnected events that are completely random, and if you change one variable, your entire life, it's essentially the butterfly effect, right? You know, if you miss the train that day you fall into love, then your life ends up completely differently. All this, essentially the idea is that the world is just this cold, random assortment of colliding atoms, and there's no free will, and your life is determined by these sort of impersonal, I don't know, scientific, like atoms and shit, like bullshit. So I don't know. I couldn't find that scene. I won't lie. I couldn't find that scene. I thought he said it. Maybe I misremembered it. Maybe I conflated with another scene. So if this critique doesn't apply to the film, then I'll take that L. Okay, we'll retract this critique. But I'm going to make this point anyways, because I think it's important. And you hear a lot of rationalists say this. It's absolute nonsense. It is absolute nonsense. So let's take, for example, the one I just gave. So let's say I have a girl that I'm really interested in. We just met at my friend's house 2 nights ago. She gave me her number. I gave her my number. We're planning to meet this Saturday, which is today, and I am so excited to take her to a nice fancy restaurant at the Olive Garden. I'm excited. So, we go there, bad luck. The train is running off schedule. I had to help my brother with his flat tire because he was going to get robbed, and I missed my train. That sucks. Now, according to time as a pure quantity, and according to this nonsense, determinist, rationalist nonsense, I'm screwed. There's nothing I can do. My life has completely changed course. I guess I can never be with that girl again because why would I? I mean, everything's just different. Everything's just changes. No. Time as a quality is what drives you, my friend. So on our initial encounter, or when we first met, me and this girl, the qualities that charged the moment speaking with her were so positive and so full of love and joy and pleasure that those non-spatial potencies or latencies, when activated, directly caused, if you want to say that word, or guided me toward setting up that date and going toward Saturday. So if I miss the train, it doesn't make a difference because I'm just going to text her and say, hey, we're going to meet up another day because I really want to be with you. Because I had such a great time as a quality, that I want to replicate that and I want to do it for the rest of my life. So time as a quality is what drives your actions, and combined with all this other stuff that we've been talking to, past and future conceptions, yada, yada, yada. But this idea that your loved one is just some random, I don't know, you just randomly met her and there's no such thing as real love and there's no such thing as spiritual love, absolute horseshit. You would not have married your wife or husband if the time as a quality wasn't so high that you felt it justified to do so. So time as a quality is what completely destroys this idea that everything's just this random assortment. No, you do have free will, and you used it to engage in time as a quality, to replicate good times and to avoid bad times. It's very simple. It's just nonsense. And it's funny, too. This is why I don't know what to do with Charlie. Because in the end, right before he dies, what does he say to that random woman? Quote, I wanted to do a picnic with my daughter. I want you to think about that for a second. Right before he's about to die, what does he say? I wanted to do a picnic with my daughter. So not only are we referencing a particular moment, hello, quantum mechanics, not all moments are equal. Not all moments are the chronological step-by-step flat line. A moment charged by qualities. Now, in this case, the quality of love. So it seems, all of a sudden, the rationalists do understand time as a quality, and that some moments are better than the others. Now, unfortunately for Caden, it's too late. Just kind of is what it is. So now we're going to go towards the final monologue. I'm going to read it all at once, and then we're going to take it line by line because I'm not a fan. Quote, what was once before you, an exciting and mysterious future, is now behind you, lived, understood, disappointing. You realize you are not special. You have struggled into existence and are now slipping silently out of it. This is everyone's experience. Every single one. Hello, the meaning of the word synecdoche. What is a synecdoche? It means when a part is taken for the whole. So if I were to say, can I have your hand in marriage? Well, obviously, in a very literal sense, I'm not asking just for your hand, right? I'm asking for your whole body. But the part, the hand, has been taken for the whole. There you go. This is everyone's experience. Caden, the part, is meant to exemplify the whole. That's why I made that point earlier about, I think it's supposed to be like an ontological study on what it means to live in a postmodern world. The specifics hardly matter. Everyone is everyone. So you are Adele, Hazel, Claire, Olive. You are Ellen. These are other characters in the film. All her meager sadnesses are yours. All her loneliness. The gray, straw-like hair, her red, raw hands. It's yours. It is time for you to understand this. As the people who adore you stop adoring you, as they die, as they move on, as you shed them, as you shed your beauty, your youth, as the world forgets you, as you recognize your transience, as you begin to lose your characteristics one by one, as you learn there is no one watching you, and there never was, you think only about driving. Not coming from any place, not arriving any place, just driving. Counting off time. We'll return to that. Now you are here. It's 7:43. Now you are here. It's 7:44. Now you are gone. Then Caden dies. We'll take it line by line. What was once before you, an exciting and mysterious future, is now behind you, lived, understood, disappointing. Emphasis on the temporal direction. So I agree that being overly romantic about the future will always lead you to disappointing realizations. So it sounds like your past and present were directly conditioned and created by your future. So why don't we just bring it back to a qualitative balance where we recognize that there will be good times and bad times, and it needs to be that for the soul to endure and to improve, and that recognize that future conceptions are affecting the present moment, and they are guiding the present moment and dragging them along to make that future conception into a destiny. So if you can change your future conceptions, you can change how you are experiencing life in the present moment, and then the wheels are off and you can channel all these energies for virtuous and intelligent ends. Let's see. Is now behind you, lived, understood, disappointing. Ooh, man. Think about that. Lived, understood, disappointing. Understood presupposes knowledge, which presupposes rational thought. Why would rational thought being employed over your past, why would that lead to disappointment? Is it because rational thought extracts all numinous content from the past and extracts all numinous content from the world, i.e. the magic structure? I think that's part of it. And man, what a cynical way to view things. Lived, understood, disappointing. Man, what world are you living in, buddy? You're Caden, bro. You got a great wife, or you had a wife. You had a great daughter before you messed that up. You got a free check to write your own play for 1 trillion years straight. What are you whining about? You're not in Africa. You're not Jew in the Holocaust. You're not a slave or an African American man during Jim Crow. What are you whining about? You live one of the... Don't get me started. You're the problem. You're the one who precluded all this meaning of life and all this life, this sort of salvation of life through art, poetry, myth, spiritual pursuits. You're the one who precluded all this by supplanting the pre-rational and irrational with rational. And now you're whining to me. This is this blows my mind. Don't whine to me. It's like when like someone who disagrees with you politically, they take what you said and they just like create something else with it, and they give it back to you and they go, "What is this?" You go, "I don't know, dude. You made it. You made this world. Why are you whining to me about it?" You have struggled into existence and are now slipping silently out of it. That's one way of viewing things. I would say you were spiritually born into existence, and now you are returning spiritually, but we'll get in there. This is everyone's experience, every single one. Again, hello, the meaning of the word Synecdoche. The specifics hardly matter. Everyone is everyone. This is very interesting. One, in a borderline in like a, I don't know how to say this, in like on a surface level, yes, obviously, in a physical, biological sense, we are all bound to die. Yes, this is necessary, by the way, because without it, you can't go back up to the spiritual realm, do whatever you need to do back there, and come back here, okay? If you live on this earth in one body for one time, you will never be able to accomplish all of your spiritual goals and learn all of your spiritual lessons, because everyone on this earth was put inside their body in their circumstance to face a particular event that they will have to traverse or sort of work through and come on the other side learning a virtue, whether it be humility, love, forgiveness, just a general optimism, whatever these spiritual virtues are. You only get one, really, during your thing. So I don't know what to say now. In a pedantic sense, yes, and that is true. We are all going to die, yes. But that doesn't mean not everyone's life is equally meaningless as yours, my friend. That's absolute nonsense. There are plenty of people nowadays who live meaningful lives, not only in non-Western countries, which is say they have a more pre-rational, irrational, accentuated way of living, but even in America. Say what you will about the irrationalists. At least they have a meaningful life for the most part, at least, if they're into art and poetry and all that stuff. That's nonsense. Most people have loved ones in their life. Most people love experiencing the qualities of the life pole of the soul, friendliness, joy, pleasure, love, all these great things. So I don't know what that is. Here's another very interesting thing. What's he done here when he's saying everyone is everyone? What he's done is in my opinion, he's supplanted the personal with the apersonal. That's interesting, isn't it? Because the personal belongs to the ego, and the ego belongs to the mental structure, and that's where rationality comes from. And of course, Caden is a rationalist. So it seems, this is why I'm very ambivalent on where Kauffman's at. It seems in his last moments, he's coming to some irrational integral realizations, but unfortunately, look what's happened. In a measurable time sense, which is important, it's done. There's nothing you can do about it. This is why it's important to live your life at this moment. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you've got 3 days left. At least enjoy those last 3 days. You know what I mean? Okay. So you are Adele, Hazel, Claire, Olive. You are Ellen. All of her meager sadnesses are yours. All her loneliness. The gray straw-like hair. Her red, raw hands. It's yours. It's time for you to understand this. So, again, this is sort of seems to be pointing at an apersonal integral thing, right? Where you are employing a fundamental irrational integral empathy where you're I guess what I'm saying is you're no longer living by the artificial divisions you've imposed between you and other people. Other people's suffering are now your suffering. I think Israel-Palestine is a perfect example. It's possible that like new media, like phones and recording devices, it's possible that alone has sort of caused the West to be enamored with that conflict. It's also possible that this new apersonal integral aspect of the integral structure is making it so now we're living in a sort of global world where the divisions between Americans and Palestinians or Israelites and Canadians, they don't really exist anymore. We're all one. Interesting. As the people who adore you stop adoring you, as they die, as they move on, as you shed them, as you shed your beauty, your youth, as the world forgets you. We'll stop there and then we'll keep going. As the people who adore you stop adoring you. I don't know why that's a necessity. I'm not entirely sure why. There will be some people who stop adoring you. But you know what? You have to find a balance between external validation and internal strength. Not everything has to be. It's very egotistical. Why do you need people adoring you? I mean, you probably need a couple, right? I like that my daughter adores me. I adore my girlfriend. I adored my mother when I was young. Same thing with my father. You know, that's fine. But, like, what are you doing? You don't need people to adore you. That's very egotistical. I don't get it. As long as you're having some degree of love in your life. It's weird. Let's see. It's time for you to understand. As they die, not necessarily a bad thing, you will see them on the other side, and you will be in a far different state that's improved. As they move on, you move on too, my friend. You move on from other people. Do you think it would be fair for those people to look at you and say, wow, you just made life meaningless. You made life nihilistic because you dared to move on because you have your own life. So on one hand, Caden can be so egotistical and so wrapped up in his own self that he can't notice the world is ending. On the other hand, simultaneously, don't you dare act in your own self-interest and not glaze Caden because his fragile ego needs it the most. Who cares? As you shed them, as you shed your beauty, your youth, as the world forgets you. So shedding your beauty and youth is not necessarily a bad thing, just as the shedding of nice green leaves for snow is not necessarily a bad thing. In order to live a full human life, to live and realize the integral life, in many ways, these time stages are like seasons. And of course, because of the past is always integrated in the future, they always stay with you. So that's number one. Number one, you're not really shedding them. You can always return to them. Number two, they're always effectual. Number two, man, that is a weird way of framing that. I wouldn't view it as shedding. I kind of understand what you're getting at, but at the same time, the shedding of the quality... One quality affords openness to other qualities, and once you have all these other qualities realized, well, now you're living a full human life. That's a meaningful life. That's none of this suicidal nonsense that Caden's giving you. No, drop that. As the world forgets you, God forbid. Hey, 8 billion people in the world. He didn't even know I existed. You're not gonna cry when I die? Oh, clearly the world is just pessimistic and nihilistic. Clearly, this totally is evidence that the world is just an evil place, and totally not evidence that I'm wrapped up in my own head and I can't get out of my own personal desires. No one cares. You're not that important. You're not Einstein. Okay? You're not Gebser. You're not Mother Teresa. You're none of these guys. Okay? Relax. If you want people to adore you and for people to love you and think about you when you're gone. Live a life that's worthy of it. Live a life that improves the time as a quality of those you love. Don't give me this nonsense. God. As you learn there is no one watching you. Bullshit. Bullshit. Absolute nonsense. Spiritual God, I don't know what that God is. I'm not a Christian, so I don't mean it in that sense. I'm not a Muslim, don't mean it in that sense. God, whatever it is watching you. Your spiritual angel is watching you. Absolute nonsense. And there never was absolute nonsense. They were always there. The spiritual other side, if you want to call it that, was here before. It is the reason anything exists at all. So don't tell me it never was there. It was always there. And that you can't understand that is your problem, not mine. You think only about driving, not coming from any place, not arriving any place, just driving. Interesting. Not coming from any place, not arriving at any place. Not arriving at any place sounds goal-directed. It sounds goal-oriented. What is goal-directed? What consciousness structure does that belong to? The mental structure. So I don't know how to interpret this, quite frankly, because I don't think Kauffman realizes that he's hit upon yet another integral insight. I do not seek, I find. You are open. If you seek, you have blinders on, which is what Caden has been doing his whole life, and as evidenced by that last line, he's tired of driving to somewhere. He wants to be open, not closed. He's tired of being goal-oriented. He wants to just live and bask in reality. Sucks to suck. Not arriving any place, just driving. Counting off time. What could be more nihilistic, meaningless, terrible than just waiting to die by counting off the minutes? That is the dangers of a rationalist time. Now, when I say rationalist time, I don't mean that the clock and the metronomic rational spatial time, I don't mean that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it becomes a bad thing when you only employ that mode of time. You can employ that mode of time. That's fine. You need to do that because it helps confer order. That's great. Recognize the other layers of time, which we've talked about in this video. Time as a quality, procedural unfolding, all this stuff. And recognize that you move through them as they exist simultaneously. They're all simultaneously present and effective. Right now, you've been dealing with just one. Now we get the whole. Now you are here at 7:43. Now you are here at 7:44. Now you are gone. And then he dies. This is meaningless. It's just terrible, terrible life. So final thoughts. So here's a quote that sums up Caden pretty well. Quote, Caden Cattard is a man already dead. He lives in a half-world between stasis and antistasis. Dualism, hello. And time is concentrated. Chronology confused. Yet up until recently, he strived valiantly to make sense of his situation. But now, he's turned to stone. Pretty cool, huh? That's a pretty good summation of the rationalist impotence in a 4D world. As a man in between stasis and antistasis, one, these are dualism, and you don't have one or the other. So now you've got a real problem because you've divided into one or the other, and you don't have one or the other. I don't know what to say. You're doing an either or, and you can't have either or. Sucks. And time is concentrated. Chronology confused. Right? This is, as you can tell, this is creating stress and anxiety for Caden, which is clearly a big problem for him. And yet up until recently, he strived valiantly to make sense of his situation. But now he's turned to stone. So if you are unable to make that leap into 4D integral consciousness, this is what happens. You're turned to stone, which is say your soul is killed. There you go. Pretty simple, huh? And think about what he says, right? The half world between stasis and antistasis. We're in integral consciousness now. I'm not concerned about your divisions. I'm not concerned about half and half. I want to see the whole. There's no half in my world, or if it is, it exists simultaneously with the whole. It's both half and whole simultaneously. That's fine. That's a paradox. We're all about paradoxes. So find wholeness. Find that integral wholeness, and you don't have to be caught in a half world between stasis and antistasis. So, at best, and interpreted charitably, I think this is perhaps the greatest anti-rationalist film ever. I think it's up there with Wild Strawberries at least. Seventh Son, or not Seventh Son, the terrible Jeff Bridges movie. The Seventh Seal, excuse me. And at worst, this is Kauffman's rationalist suicide note. I think either way, it's one of my favorite films of all time. I absolutely adore this film. Philip Seymour Hoffman is amazing. And it will be added, I think, to our anti-rationalist film collection, which I'm starting, by the way. I've got some Substack reviews on my page there, going over Calvary, Wild Strawberries, and I think that might be it on Substack. But we have now 4 films in the Community, Idols of the Cave Community Anti-Rationalist Film Club. Wild Strawberries, Seventh Seal, what did I just say? That one, and Synecdoche, New York. Calvary, not Cavalry. I know it sounds confusing. Calvary, Calvary. Great. I wrote a review about it. It's great. So that's what we'll end it here. Maybe one day I'll dig into a part 2, though I think I hit a lot of the big stuff. Let me know what you guys think of my interpretations here. Sorry for not getting into a ton of mythical symbolism, but unfortunately this is a film, or fortunately, depending how you look on it, I think, myth is obviously a part of it, but I think philosophy is really where the fat of this is. And I love you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and let me know what you guys think about my video, what you think I should watch next, and let me know what films you would add to the Idols of the Cave Community Anti-Rationalist Film Collection. We are starting it. We already have 4 in there, so it's pretty good. Please go watch this film if you are trying to make that leap into 4D consciousness and you trying to come to terms with the just inhuman world and state of being and existence that is rationalism. It's a perfect distillation of that. I love you guys. You guys are the best, and I'll see you soon.